Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have the latest from the live radar, run through the weather warnings as we still have numerous rain warnings issued for southern England and South Wales, as we are going to see some more exceptionally heavy rain and thunderstorms over the next couple of days. Now we have seen some very heavy rain and some thunderstorms throughout today, and it is slowly clearing the southwest at the moment, but we'll check out the latest UKV and Arome runs to look at the activity over the next couple of days, as again it looks like we're going to see lots more heavy rain through Friday for southern areas, and it could become more extensive through the weekend, heading further north as well, potentially even some thunderstorms up towards the Midlands, northern England and northern parts of Wales as well. In the second half of the video we'll check out the longer range forecast, as it does look likely to turn cooler into next week. Even though, yes, it's raining quite a lot at the moment in southern areas, we have actually got a very warm, muggy air mass in. So for northern areas, it's actually going to be pretty pleasant over the next couple of days if you can avoid those storms through the weekend. Temperatures could even get up into the mid-20s over the next couple of days, again, where we avoid the rain. But next week, we could be mid to low teens, as it does stay unsettled, but the wind direction shifts and it turns into a more of a northwesterly with much cooler autumnal air masses moving in. The GFS is a little bit off the rails today, as it does bring that cooler air in and then brings warmer patterns back for the middle of September. So we'll check that out as well. But I think the most dominant pattern is going to be that cooler northwesterly wind arriving next week. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure you like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well, the link's in the description. Now, if you start on the live radar, you can see the very heavy rain exiting out of southwestern areas at the moment. It is moving from east to west as it is spiralling around this cut-off low that is sat in the Bay of Biscay. You can see extensive rain, especially thunderstorms across much of Western Europe here, all connected to this cut-off low, and you see this main clump of rain, which is really remnants of thunderstorms we saw develop across France through yesterday evening, kind of clearing out to our west. Now you can see this little hook to the north, and this is where we did see some thunderstorms developing on the northern edge of the main weather front, as we do have very humid air to the north of this weather front. Within that, we saw these storms taking off. Again, they did move through parts of southeast England, all the way through central southern England, and did give some really quite severe conditions in places. Luckily, the wind is pretty strong, so it did move through quite quickly, but nonetheless did give some pretty severe conditions. Throughout the rest of this evening, it does look like it will slowly turn dry. The far southwest probably still has at least a few more hours of rain, as I'm recording this around 7 p.m, but for most other areas, it's starting to look a bit better. Still thick cloud around and still some drizzle, but as you may have noticed throughout today, it has turned muggier and more humid, because as this weather front clears, we're now unlocking easterly winds that has bringing in lots of very warm air across northern Europe. Now, if you put on the temperatures, as said, around 7 p.m, you can see, look at that heat across Germany, Poland, the Czech Republic, even Netherlands and Belgium tapping into this, and that is where our air is coming from. So even though, yes, it's not particularly warm today, and that's because of the cloud and rain, we are actually drawing in some very warm air for the time of year, upper air temperatures into the mid to high teens, which is pretty ridiculous indeed, around 10 degrees above average. And you can even see this evening, it's still warm in places. It's still above average temperatures in the low 20s for many. Just doesn't feel exceptional. It doesn't feel like summer temperatures because we've got cloud and rain around. But where we see the sunshine poking through tomorrow, especially Midlands northwards, it's going to feel like we're back in the middle of summer with all this humidity heading our way. I do also want to have a look at the past 24-hour precipitation, as it will give us a very good indication of where we've seen the exceptionally heavy rain, and you can see it's where we've expected across that warning zone, across southern and southwestern areas, covering South Wales as well. You see the northern extent of those thunderstorms that move through where there's slightly darker patches just to the north of the main banding. That's where we saw those thunderstorms moving through. And then you can see, of course, much of southern England, M4 line southwards, lots of dark green, so about an inch of rain, and some yellows, so maybe 2 inches of rain. You can see, luckily, not seeing anywhere near the amount of rainfall France have seen, this line heading from Marseille all the way up towards the north coast, and that is where those thunderstorms really took off as they headed towards the UK, did lose intensity throughout today, but still produced lots of heavy rain for us. We could be seeing something similar to this tomorrow, or maybe not this extensive, not sort of this big wall of orange, but we could see more oranges over the next couple of days as the rain really tots up, and there could be more of a thundery element over the next couple of days. Now, if we do go over to the weather warnings, we still have weather warnings issued for the next couple of days. I do suspect warnings will be issued for Saturday, maybe Sunday, maybe more extensive thunderstorm warning, but I do think those will be put into force Friday morning, or at least through Friday when the models become a bit clearer. Because again, a lot of this rain is convection based along a weather front, but mainly convection based, and all depends on the positioning of the cut-off low. Very small differences in the positioning can create huge contrasts in the overall conditions. So I think Met Office are leaving it as late as possible to issue this, because there could be some late adjustments to the position of the low, which could change the rainfall totals a lot. So probably tomorrow morning we'll have new warnings for Saturday, maybe Sunday. But you can see this extensive warning that does expire in a few hours' time for southern and southwestern areas. Again, it does get replaced by another warning immediately at midnight for Friday, but I do think there will be a bit of a lull overnight tonight before the rain picks up again through the early hours of the morning. You can see again heavy rain in many areas. It wasn't updated, today. So it's very similar to the warning we saw yesterday. So we won't go through this too much because it does expire imminently in the next few hours. But again, it's 20 to 40 millimetres, and that's what we've seen. A couple of inches, 50 to 60, as we've seen it in a few areas as well. And then we have this warning for Friday, again covering very similar areas, maybe not as much of southern Wales, but maybe more of eastern parts of southeast England. And against the full 24 hours of Friday, heavy rain may lead to some travel disruption and flooding in places across southern England and southern Wales through Friday. You can see it has been updated, and the warning area has been trimmed in its northern extent, with a greater emphasis on the risk of thunderstorms early and again later in the warning period. So an increased risk there of thunderstorms in this latest Met Office warning. Now, if you look at the further detail, outbreaks of heavy rain are expected widely across southern England and South Wales on Friday. Heavy rain will be persistent for some and maybe particularly heavy in a few places, 15 to 30 millimetres, so similar totals today expected widely, 40 to 60 millimetres through the whole of Friday, maybe 75 to 100 millimetres. So the top end of the rain could be higher than we've seen today, and I do think that's because of that risk of thunderstorms. Where those thunderstorms occur within the larger bands of rain, that's where we could see those rainfall totals really adding up. You can see it could be accompanied by thunderstorms, as we said, during the early hours and during the afternoon evening across the southeast. This heavy rain follows on from an expected wet day across some similar areas on Thursday, which will increase the likelihood of impacts. There is also the potential for further spells of heavy rain over the weekend. So it just keeps on coming. And again, this is the power of a cut-off low. It doesn't move and just continues spiraling rain towards us. And it doesn't help that we've got very humid air mixing in with this that just exacerbates those issues and increases that precipitation rate and the thunderstorm amounts. Now, if you go over to the latest UKV and see what that has in store over the next few days, you can see that rain slowly clearing out of the southwest through the rest of this evening. And then as we head overnight, we do see a bit of a lull for a time, a couple of hours perhaps, and then we start to see some thunderstorms enter the far southeast. They look quite light and small through around midnight, but then they start to pick up through the early hours of Friday, initially across the far southwest, but this rain could shift slowly further northwards throughout the day. Now, interestingly, the UKV is a bit further southwards again with this system. The Arome run is a bit further northwards, as we'll look at in a minute, and you see the Met Office have issued warnings and changed that warning area. So still encompass areas M4 line, maybe even further north than that, whereas the UKV doesn't really get there. So it looks like the UKV has a little bit of a bias at the moment for being slightly southerly tracked with these thunderstorms. But nonetheless, you can see the intensity of the rain. Again, uncertainty exactly where it will position itself, but it is going to be very lively in places throughout much of Friday morning. Into the afternoon, it could be a brief lull for a couple of hours around lunch, and then more heavy thundery showers moving in. We could see a further line of thunderstorms developing through the evening, and this really shifts northwards here. Some dark reds moving into southern Wales. Could be very intense through Friday evening before slowly dissipating away, but still activity all the way towards midnight. Now, as we head into the weekend, again, a lull into Saturday morning, nothing too much going on. But as we head into the afternoon, we start to see more rain heading up from the south, and overnight into Sunday, heavy, thundery rain really pushes in from the channel. And it doesn't just skim the far south, it heads further northwards into the Midlands, northern England, and we could see extensive, heavy, thundery rain as the cut-off low truly pushes northwards, and it brings the risk for a more widespread area. And you see through Saturday and Sunday could be washout conditions in places and lots of thunderstorms for it slowly dissipates away into the early part of next week, where we see the westerlies get unlocked. Now, if you look at the mixed level Cape, again, you can see as we head through Friday, we do see moderate amounts of Cape heading in through the afternoon and evening, perhaps even some high levels of Cape. So the risk of extensive storms there, perhaps through the evening, depending on where that line of storms set up, could be very active indeed. We'll have to keep a very close eye on that. And then as we head into the weekend, dies out a little bit through Saturday, but there's still some activity in the north, and then more extensive Cape, a lot of Cape potentially through Sunday, again along the occluded front around the cut-off low, and again could see some more severe storms in a line there from north to south. So yeah, an east to west line through Friday, and maybe a north to south line there through Sunday of more further storms before eventually the low pulls away and things turn a little less active. Now, the reason why there's a lot of activity and warm temperatures is because we've got very warm air associated with this low. You can see through this afternoon some very warm, moist air moving in from the east, and that will continue to push in through much of Friday, and we're likely to see temperatures maybe mid-20s, high 20s in places through Friday, especially for northern areas, or even Scotland, Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, where we do avoid the rain and storms. But as we head into Saturday, we are likely to lose some of the intensity of that heat. So it'll still be warm, just not quite as warm. And then slowly through Sunday into Monday, we start to see that much fresher air moving in, and it could turn even cooler into the subsequent days. Now, if you look at the max temperatures, you can see this afternoon temperature's not great, 20, 21 at best, but it has turned more humid throughout the day. Temperatures won't drop away all too much overnight. Will actually stay relatively high teens. So temperatures not dropping away at all in some regions. But you can see as we head into Friday, temperatures really climbing by the afternoon. And I wouldn't be surprised to see a 27 or a 28 across parts of the Midlands, maybe Northern England, low 20s for much of Republic of Ireland, Northern Ireland and Scotland, and wouldn't be surprised to see a 25, which is very warm indeed for early September. The far south, though, much cooler under that rain, and again, those greens and that colder conditions could push northwards as well, dependent on the positioning of the weather front. As we head into Saturday, it's still likely to be warm in places, low 20s, maybe mid-20s, but not quite as widespread, as we do see a little bit more cloud and rain further north and some showers, and we do generally see those upper air temperatures starting to tail away. And the same can be said for Sunday, where still warm in places, but slowly degrading, as we do head to much cooler period next week, where into Tuesday morning, mid-single digits to high single digits perhaps, so much fresher indeed. Now, do compare to the Rome run, only goes out to 42 hours here, so unfortunately we don't get all the way through towards Sunday, where we do have another active day of storms. But you can see the rain earlier today, very heavy, and you can see that line of storms moving through just to the north of London, or moving through London and then to the north of London through South Wales, and you can see it slowly degrading away this evening, but still could be some thunderstorms overnight tonight, maybe a bit more activity than the UKV was showing. But then into Friday, some big thundery rain moving back in from the southeast and could be very active, and you can see the rain is much further northwards here, 50 plus miles further northwards, so it could be a lot more rain around for areas, more extensive areas across southern England. It does slowly die away through the afternoon into the evening. We don't see too much activity in terms of that line of thunderstorms. It's still there, it's just not quite as organised perhaps as the UKV showed, and then eventually tails away into the evening, and then we can see more activity into the weekends. So the Rome run is very similar, slight deviations in intensities, especially those storms on Friday afternoon into the evening, but it does have general activity further northwards in the UKV. So you could say the UKV perhaps is a little bit more severe, but it's a bit more southerly tracked, whereas the Rome run maybe not quite as severe, but we see that rain more for northern parts of the warning zone. Again, it's an outcast situation, but areas are going to see a lot of rain through Friday, as much as they've seen through Thursday, maybe even more. We'll just have to wait and see. It doesn't look like it's going to be a massive wall of rain. There could be persistent rain around, but it does look like it's going to be lots of up and down in terms of intensities, some big thundery showers around, some lulls at times, so it could be a very wild day indeed. So make sure you stay safe out there if you are in that warning zone. But if we do have a look at the longer range now, again, we've covered the shorter range quite a lot of detail, so we'll run through this relatively quickly, as again, we'll put more detail into this as we get through the weekend. You can see the cut-off low sat to our south at the moment, slowly clearing to our east through Sunday into Monday, and then it unlocks the doors to north to northwesterly winds, and you can see much cooler, fresher air moving in, even the -5 isotherm getting close to us, and you can see it's around 8 to 10 degrees below average. But as we head beyond that, that eventually gets cut off. It stays westerly for a time, and eventually towards the final third of September, we see high pressure building in, and it actually goes sunny and warm. Pretty remarkable, and temperatures by day low to mid-20s. For the late part of September, that is very warm indeed. Again, if this had occurred in October, we could start to be potentially using the phrase Indian summer. Probably not being still in September, first month after summer, still the potential here, but very warm indeed. From going warm at the moment, humid, thundery at the moment, cooler next week, and then perhaps after that, going much more warmer again. I don't know how much support this has got. I doubt it's got a lot. We'll look at the ensembles at the end of the video, but again, a plausible scenario, but very interesting indeed. Could we have a very up and down September if this came off? If you compare to the latest GM, again, that cut-off low sat to our south, slowly clearing eastwards over the coming hours, north to northwesterly wind pushing in, and it stays relatively cool and unsettled, and towards day 10, still fresh with a northerly flow, but high pressure starting to move in. Again, we'll have to wait and see. If you compare to the latest ECMWF, again, low pressure system sat out to our southwest, slowly moving northwards and eastwards. Very cool, chilly air coming in from the northwest again into next week. You see that from those upper air temperatures are pretty fresh indeed. And then eventually we stay with a flat westerly into the longer range, but staying relatively cool and unsettled. If you finish by looking at the latest ensembles, again, the GFS are just coming out at the moment. Very warm at the moment, slowly trending back towards average or below average. And you can see it is pretty cold for a time next week as we see those northwesterly winds coming back in. So you might need hat and gloves out for some in the north. It is going to be cold, those temperatures. Low double digit in the day, single digits overnight, but it also have quite a significant wind chill with that wind coming straight in from the northwest. Beyond that, though, temperatures do recover, most ensemble members back towards average or maybe slightly above average, and you can see the GFS operational run there is a little bit of an outlier with significantly above average. So not quite as much support there, admittedly, but very, very similar, very similar from a majority of the ensembles here. But yeah, lots of rain at the moment, but for Glasgow, further northwards, very little rain at all. So stunning sunny conditions further northwards, horrible thundery conditions further southwards. And then if we finish by looking at the latest ECMWF, broadly very similar. Well above average at the moment with lots of rain for southern areas, dry further northwards, back towards average by the weekend and start of next week, and then a very cool period for a time and also unsettled, so that's not going to help those temperatures either. And then it returns back towards average after a few days, and then we kind of hover around average or slightly above average into the final half, or the second half, of September. Again, we'll have to wait and see how it does play out. We'll update this longer range in a bit more detail as we head into the weekend, as we do start to get to the UKV, or it starts going to the UKV's time frame. But for the time being, you've got to deal with a lot of warm weather in the north and for Midlands, and even for southern areas where we avoid the rain, but also lots of heavy rain and thunderstorms. So make sure you do stay safe over the coming hours and the coming days. Do make sure you keep an eye on those weather warnings, as I suspect they will be continually updated. Most of the time we get sort of a blanket update through the morning, but potentially for the afternoons as well, we could get some updates. And make sure you do stay safe. Don't take any risks, because we are going to see lots of rain in some areas over the next 48 hours or so. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.